Russia said to allow crypto mining in regions with hydroelectric and nuclear power. Cryptocurrency mining should be allowed in areas with excess energy and prohibited in those that experience deficits. According to Russian officials, the Central Bank of Russia and the Ministry of Finance recently agreed on legislation designed to regulate the mining of cryptocurrency that should be adopted by the end of this year. Lawmakers working to finalize it have indicated that the industrial activity should be permitted only in parts of the vast country that can produce more electricity than they need. Preparing to legalize it, the idea
crypto exchanges are interpreting what laws they have to comply with.
Yeah, and it's interesting. In addition to the Department of Justice, you have Democratic senators also asking the U.S. Treasury Department to keep a close eye on crypto and sanctions across the world. But if you look at some of the biggest exchanges, Binance said they comply with sanctions rules. If you take a look at Coinbase, which is based in the U.S., also says that they comply with sanctions rules. So does FTX. But here's the problem at hand, Emily. You have many exchanges across the world where crypto is borderless. So the question is, are there exchanges out there that don't comply with U.S. and international sanctions? And to what extent are regulators, U.S., EU regulators, able to get a hold on those exchanges? In addition to recognizing that some of these exchanges may not have the KYC capabilities, that's know your customer capabilities and expertise to really track what's going on among their client base.
I did ask U.S. Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco about this earlier, how cryptocurrency exchanges are working with the administration and the Department of Justice to not just, get these, luxury yachts and jets and apartments, but also track down cryptocurrency. Take a quick listen to what she had to say.
We need the cooperation and of right-thinking and well-behaving cryptocurrency exchanges and other businesses. That has to continue to happen. And if it doesn't, people are going to find themselves, businesses are going to find themselves in our crosshairs.
Whole position. I mean, how easy is it to tell if your users are Russian oligarchs or not?
Yeah, that's an interesting question here, because besides the multitude of exchanges and the chains of transfers that you can see across those exchanges, there's also the pure instance in which you may have a sanctioned individual who theoretically sets up an entity somewhere else, puts it in somebody else's name, puts it in another country, and then makes transactions that way. So really tracking here the end user is going to be what's difficult across those multitude of exchanges with the staff that they are bringing on, right? We know that many of these exchanges means, frankly, this is really the SEC trying to take a look at what projects really replicate traditional securities offerings. We've seen so many renditions of this. But the reason this is so interesting, Emily, is because not only is the SEC really trying to liken what's happening in the NFT market to the IPO market, you also have seen this being a market where
love so hard and then you throw it away. You like to open skies and then you blame it on me. You're someone I can never be with. You joke about my flaws and weaknesses. Why do you love so hard and then just throw it away? You opened up my heart just to close it on me. Don't blame it on me.
Capital flight to following the Bank of England explaining that it would be meddling in UK bond markets and the Bank of Japan defending the yen in the foreign exchange market last week. The Hong Kong Monetary Authority (HKMA) revealed it intervened in forex markets on Wednesday. Hong Kong's central bank detailed that it interfered in forex markets in order to defend the Hong Kong dollar (HKD) as it showed signs of weakness against the greenback on September 28. US dollar, while the euro and pound sterling lost 12 to 17% against the US dollar during the
Bowen. I'm a markets reporter for the Wall Street Journal, and I want to talk to you a little bit about a story that I think hasn't been getting nearly enough attention. And that's about the rising value of the dollar. The dollar rose by 7% last year. That was its strongest year since 2015. So here's why the dollar is rising and how that increase in the value of the dollar could have a major impact on the value of the stock market. Let's get into it. So why is the dollar getting stronger? Well, it starts with the rebound that we've seen in the US economy. In 2021, the US added around 6 million jobs. The other big piece of the economic puzzle is gross domestic product, GDP. US GDP is expected to grow around 6% for 2021. That's the best year we've had in quite some time. Now, all that matters to the dollar because the value of the dollar is reflective of, again, the US economy. People want to put their money in a place where they know it's going to be safe, and in a place in an economy that they think is going to grow. And when more people want to put money in dollars, it makes the value of the dollar rise. Having a strong economy is great, but what really draws the value of foreign money to the US and the US dollar is high treasury yields. Now I know what you're thinking, the US treasury yields are historically low, but if we compare them to other industrialized and developed nations, well, the value of US treasury yields is very high. That drives a lot of money from outside the US into the US. When I talk to one of my longtime sources, John Doyle, he's the vice president of trading and dealing at Tempest, he tells me that the biggest factor has been the hawkish turn by the Federal Reserve to fight persistent inflation here in the US. The Fed is expected to hike interest rates faster than most other central banks this year. Now that's going to, in theory at least, raise the value of US Treasury yields and make the dollar even more attractive as a place for foreigners to store their money in the US. So why could this be a problem for the stock market? Well, let's think about it. Experts agree corporate profits are the biggest driver of stock prices, and US companies have increased their overseas presence in recent years. And in fact, S&P 500 companies generated 40% of their revenue from outside the US, according to FactSet. Now those other countries, they've got other currencies, and when the value of the dollar rises, the value of those currencies declines. Now usually prices stay pretty stable, so if the price of something isn't rising, but its value in dollar terms is declining, that means companies are making less money. Think about it like this. If something cost 100 euros and you were getting $120 for every euro, but now you're getting 110, well, that thing is still being sold for 100 euros, but you as an American company are only getting $110. That's a loss. This is what happens when the value of the dollar rises. The dollar's 7% gain in 2021 basically reversed its entire loss for 2020. So if we're back where we were in 2019, we're back at a place where the strong dollar is hurting companies and hurting international sales. Lower sales equals lower profits, which could drag down stock prices. If this continues into 2022, you can expect to hear more executives complaining about the strong dollar. Now add to that supply chain bottlenecks, inflation, and a Federal Reserve that instead of cutting rates and making conditions easier, is making things tighter. And you can see why the strong dollar could have a real impact on the stock market.
Yeah, I'm all about keeping it you and I. When you're here, you spark chemical reactions. Your aura strikes like lightning. Got no words, I'm just drowning in attraction. Only one way to describe it.